One of the contradictory things about being schizoid is how we can appear insensitive on the surface when we are in fact fundamentally very sensitive, and this can include sensitivity to sensory stimuli and also hyperpermeability. The reason why we may not appear so is because of our defenses. I made a video called the Schizoid Defense, which covers how we use our schizoid defenses to help to keep our true self at a distance from other people, and also to create distance between our true self and the external environment. In psychology, hyperpermeability typically refers to a state where an individual's psychological boundaries are excessively porous or permeable. This term is often used in the context of interpersonal relationships and boundary management. So I'm going to cover exactly how the sensory sensitivity manifests and also hyperpermeability. Please bear in mind that due to the defenses that I just mentioned, some people may become less aware of their own sensitivity over time because of ingrained defenses that enable the sensitivity to be managed. However, this does still affect us in our day-to-day life. If we're around other people for prolonged periods of time, it may not be possible for us to keep up our defenses the whole time, and we're more likely to be affected. Also, people have developed defenses to different degrees. So there's some people who have very strong defenses towards sensory stimulation and are going to be less hyperpermeable as a consequence. And there are other people who have not developed so much defenses towards it and are going to be still very sensitive to these two facets of being schizoid. So in terms of sensory sensitivity, this involves things like loud noises, very busy, overwhelming environment such as crowds, nightclubs, sometimes maybe even shopping malls, anywhere where there's a lot of sensory stimuli going on around us. And this can include strong emotions in our environment. So if there's a lot of strong emotions around us, this counts as sensory stimuli, and this is something that we're going to want to avoid. This is something that can make social settings uncomfortable for us, especially after long periods of time, and we may need to withdraw and seek sanctuary as a consequence of this. With the sensory sensitivity along with hyperpermeability, we have the propensity to absorb other people's emotions and to find it difficult to distinguish between other people's emotions and our own. For many of us, we tend to detach from our emotions. However, with strong emotions coming in from our environment, we may find ourselves overwhelmed by other people's feelings. Having a difficulty in interpreting where our feelings end and other people's feelings begin can mean that when we're in relationships, we can feel like we're losing ourselves to the other person. And this is because we don't have strong boundaries in terms of identity and self. And so by being around other people's emotions can be quite impacting, and this can be draining for us, meaning that we need to withdraw into solitude in order to regain our sense of self. With hyperpermeability, it really is all geared around a difficulty in setting boundaries between ourselves and others, and this can have a lot of different consequences for us in relationships. It can make it very difficult for us to assert our needs or set limits, and it can mean that we adhere to other people's needs or cater for other people's needs over our own. And for that reason, we can be in situations where we have to be careful that we're not being exploited or overwhelmed by other people's demands. We also have hyperpermeability in terms of adopting other people's thoughts, views, and beliefs. Now, this doesn't mean that we take their beliefs on as our own, but we might find ourselves compulsively seeing things from other people's points of view when we're around them or when we're with them rather than our own. And due to this, when we're by ourselves, we're able to recalibrate with our true self and our true values and our true beliefs rather than being situationally influenced by other people's thoughts. For some of us, we can really internalize other people's perspectives to the point where even after we separate from those people, we can still be processing what we see as their thoughts and viewpoints afterwards, and this can lead us to not to be very selective about who we socially engage with, and also to not want to spend a lot of time with other people because of the what feels like an intrusion of other people's thoughts or values being infiltrated into our mind. Really, the hyperpermeability affects interpersonal relationships to a high degree with schizoid, and it accounts for the reason why we withdraw and the reason why we have defenses to protect ourselves from the outside world and from intrusions from other people's thoughts and feelings, and also from the sensory environment, which can be quite overwhelming for us at times if we're not in the right state to manage it. In general, schizoids prefer to be alone so that we can be at one with ourselves, our thoughts, without the intrusion of the outside world coming in and affecting our mind and our feelings. For some people who haven't had the opportunity to be alone, they may have used their defenses to a high degree in order to cope in environments that were potentially overstimulating, and over time this can mean that the detachment from emotions and the physical world is very strong. As I said, I made a video all about the defenses, and I will link the video below if you want to find out more about the sort of defenses that schizoids use in order to protect and preserve their true self from the external world.